I've been hearing about what narcissism. What is this disorder that people are talking about?
Well, it's always been around, but not as much as it is now. So let me just explain to you that we really didn't have any textbooks on narcissistic character disorder until the 1980s. I remember reading them and I went, oh my God, this is so interesting. Now it explains. But one of the things that people like myself that are psychotherapists understand is that there's two times in everybody's life when they have narcissistic tendencies. The terrible twos is the first. And if you've ever been around a child that's 2 years old, they say, no, you can't make me. And they're just horrible. And so, a good parent doesn't beat them up or ignore them. They say, I'm in charge. And so the kid goes out of that narcissistic stage until puberty. And in puberty, they don't listen to you. They do whatever they want. They scream. And if the parents are not putting their foot down and giving them uh, things to do, then they start down a road called narcissistic character, that narcissism. And what we know is that there's a lot of ideas that a person who's narcissistic character disorder, because it's a character disorder, so it's all about them. They have only one relationship with themselves, and therefore they have no compassion, and they have a lot of anger. It's called narcissistic rage. And when you have a relationship with somebody like that by mistake, because anytime you meet somebody that's got good chemistry, and you look at them and you go, oh, they're just fabulous, charm alarm. They probably got narcissistic character disorder, which happens when you don't grow past these 14 years and 2 years ideas of narcissism. So what happens to us when we get involved with people like that, especially in today's world, the way that people try to learn to mate? They don't meet people, they pretend that they meet people online. And what we know is something called the 90-day wonder. And we know that most relationships with people like that are not going to make 90 days. And so that's why you go slow when you meet somebody, so that you have time to assimilate who they really are. And they never take responsibility for anything that goes wrong. It's about you. So what we know is that there's a whole lot of people I know, certainly a lot of my clients that scream about their narcissistic people that they know. And I said, well, there's a lot of those people. And this is how you know that you are with one, because they're toxic people. I used to teach in the Jung Center here in Houston, and they said, and what are we supposed to do when we find a terrible person? I said, you're supposed to leave. You're supposed to leave, because nothing good is going to happen. They get worse and worse and worse. If it's a female that's narcissistic, because they're just as often to do it as men, what we know is that there's nobody in her world except her, and it's all about her. The same thing with males. And what we know is these people never developed. And if you're not developing, I mean, nobody's perfect. You have 3 steps forward and then one backward. When you're doing that, you're saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that, because we have consciousness about ourselves. I wish I hadn't done that. I need to make sure I don't do that anymore. So if we're growing, we just have a little bit of a backup. But if we never grow, we go back to age 14, mean girl and mean boy, or 2, which is the terrible kid. So it's really important to know what I'm about to tell you. Years ago, not too many, somebody decided they were going to change our book that tells you all the things that you can have wrong with you.
They
diagnose us with the story, DSM, and they were going to use that, but they said we're going to get rid of it because 50% of the people in the United States have narcissistic character disorder. They either never got out of it or they regressed into it. And so somebody said, no, well, that's too bad. We can't do that. We just have to forget that. But it's true. So when you meet new people, it's always a good idea to have a couple questions to try to trick them into telling you who they are.
Well, and can I get their chart information?
Yes,
Can you analyze it?
absolutely. That is the most important thing you can do. You know, anybody I know, since they know I'm a psychotherapist and an astrologer, anytime they meet somebody, they say, can you look them up? I said, I can profile anybody and give you a pretty good 90% what the person's going to be. Mm-hmm. And they say, how do you do that? And I said, I'm good at what I do. I've done it a lot because astrology tells you.
Mm-hmm. So and that's why I feel like you're so good, is that you add the astrology element of knowledge into the therapy.
Yes, because to me they're the same. Why would you not do both? They balance.
Yeah, it's expanding your awareness of how to help me.
Yes, and I love to help people. That's my whole desire in life. So we'll just tell you that if you need help, or anybody out there needs help, nanhallwinky.com, make an appointment. I'm happy to help you.